Today's a pretty interesting day for me because I get to meet a mountain biker that's used tech to overcome a life-changing injury. His name's Tom Wheeler and he works for Fox UK here in South Wales. Now back in 2011, he was an expert level downhill racer, really coming up through the ranks when he managed to hit a tree at full tilt. And the injury was so severe, it pulled out all his nerves that control his arm from his spine, instantly paralysing it. But Tom's unlike most other mountain bikers. He's a lateral thinker and he's actually managed to find a way, an ingenious way of continuing to ride a mountain bike. And his journey really is quite remarkable. Hello mate.
Hey buddy, how are we doing?
How you doing? Been a while.
It has.
Mate, I cannot wait to hear this story. There's so much
There's a lot
to this.
Let's do it then.
Yeah, let's go.
Come on. Awesome.
It's always been kind of seeing my older brother race. He was there right when the Dragon Downhill started, so it was always kind of my goal to grow up to be a downhiller. It just felt natural, you know. I'd gone from being like the 6-year-old on the one side of the tape watching him and cheering him on to being like a competitor almost. My category was made up of Josh Bryceland, Sam Dale, Joe Smith. You know what I mean? It wasn't an easy category. And that was, my expectation was to be better than them boys. It was in a different league to what I've ever done. I just rode bikes before, but now I was starting to do focus training. And then I thought, right, well, if I'm gonna do it, I finished uni, I thought, right, let's do it. Let's put everything into it. I don't wanna look back and think I didn't put my all in. So I went into expert and then I was winning. So like won Cumcan, I won Gethin. It had changed. It went from being like reasonably quick to being like someone who's gonna be fastest overall, that kind of thing. It was everything I wanted racing to be, you know, it was a full package, you know, it was all there. I was like, well, I want to keep this going, because once you're up to speed, you just want to keep at it. So I booked into Riola last minute in the week. I never do that. My schedule was planned like months before, so I was like, right. It's one of them tracks where I love it, but it's fast, and when you're really pushing, it can bite you. Turned up, I thought everything's mint, like everything just feels spot on. Bike's good, I'm in a good place, head's in a good place. It came to last run of the day. I'm always smiles on the track, I'm in my element, you know, that's my favourite place to be. I'm already thinking about meeting my girlfriend, you know what I mean, like it's last run, whatever. But at the bottom section, I was doing the typical racer thing, making the most of the way it was taped, and I'd found that you could run super wide before it really opened up, and it would like your entry speed to the next section was just nuts. I came in fine, and I was probably going a bit slower than I was earlier in the day, but just on the right side of the track there's a branch overhanging the tape, and it jarred me, but I think it actually grabbed a bit of front brake, and it just happened so quick. Just straight in. I got super lucky because my head deflected off the tree and then it went into my neck. My head actually, like if you on the footage you see it go round, and then it just, yeah, blacked out, done. And I think I went in and out, and then I was just trying to just coping with it, I guess is the best way of doing it. So I just never forget saying to Stanley, just pop it back in. I just thought my shoulder popped out. I heard stories of people popping shoulders, pinching nerves, and you lose feeling. Yeah. I was like, just pop it back in, and Stanley's like, it's not out. I'm like, what do you mean it's not out? Like, if, you know, I associated that with like, it must be out because I can't feel anything. And then it all, yeah, so I did the check then, legs, I can move my legs, I can move my arm. I thought I was moving my right arm and nothing at all. The helicopter came in, they got me out of there. As I say, your mind goes into a different place, so it was very much like, this isn't good, but it kind of is. I've got good people around me, I've got familiar faces, and then, yeah, it was, yeah, a messy couple of weeks after that. Yeah.
One thing, I was speaking to my fiance about it, and the one thing that got both of us, because we both went down to see him in hospital, and it was just the positivity straight away. It was the situation he was in, which all of a sudden, you know, life-changing, And just the positivity he came out with there and then was inspiring.
I worried for a little while about how he would be without racing, because that's all he's ever known. You know, he did his first race for the year 2000 in Worcester Lodging when he was 3.5, I think it was, in the Pee-wee category. And it played such a major part in him. I didn't know how it was going to work out, but I was always confident it would.
Initially, I was like kind of relieved, because I had all this pressure of racing a bike. And when someone says, that ain't gonna happen, it's kind of a really odd thing. It's like, well, that sucks, but at least I can chill. that kind of mentality. It didn't last long.
But I think he was actually in hospital, so it would be a few days after the crash. It was a case of, so what I'm planning is kind of like an exoskeleton, or I've seen Tom Bannister use a sling, so it was straight away. It was a case of when are you getting on the back, not how.
I got one arm. It's gonna be hard, but if I can balance on a 20-inch and a 10-foot jams in the garden with one arm, I can ride a mountain bike. Will just make it a bit easier for me if I can.
Nice, bro. Oh, he's back.
And then you just got to whisper it to Chris. He was my boss at the time.
At no point after he had the accident did I think that's the end of Tom's riding. I was all for helping Tom get back on a bike if he wanted to do it.
So when everyone heard that I actually wanted to ride one-handed, like people just like wanted to help as much as they could. Whether it was my brother, my best mates, whatever, it was like, let's do it.
He convinced me it was a good idea and wanted to try it, so we did it. Moving all those controls to the left-hand side.
And before I knew it, I had a full adapted one-handed setup. It's like, well, I can't complain about that. I ain't got any excuses now, have I?
He had the MotoGP thumb brake and all sorts of things. Very complicated, very difficult to get set up.
And then it only really started to make sense when another rider, Thomas Bannister, he's local to us. He went out, and I got to thank him massively. He went out of his way. He's had the injury about 5 years before I did mine. He came and saw me at my house, and it completely changed everything for my family and me. We got to see somebody living with it and basically just making life work. Not just that, he adapted his bike and he was shredding. Like, I'd seen some videos and I was just like, holy cow. So you can ride that hard one-handed? Unbelievable. And it was just like, well, that's what I'm going to do. And straight away, it's like that competitive side of me. Well, there's already another one-handed rider. I got to be as good as him or better. And then thanks to him, he just like gave me some advice. And then he mentioned the steering damper. Put the steering damper on, and my goodness me, what a difference. It went from like literally holding on for dear life, trying to steady the bars, to like, whoa, hang on, I can weight the front wheel and I can start to go pretty damn quick. I was holding my body and my position well.
It was only for about a couple of months that I was quicker than him.
That's when I started to pick up the progression of riding a bike with one hand, and it stopped being such a problem. And I was riding with Luke, my best mate, and we had Coma.
And we got 3/4 of the way around, and we stopped for a break, and a bloke come up alongside on his bike and said, "Oh, you're riding with one arm, that's impressive."
If you pass me on here, I'll go first. If you pass me, I'll have to sell my bike, won't I?
I looked over and Tom's just looking at me. I said, "No, don't go."
And I was like, whoa, shouldn't have said that, dude.
Off he went, and I'm shouting after him, and that was it. Then he was gone. Within 600 metres, he overtook him. Unfortunately, that ended with a big crash. One of many.
And I got carried away, and that's when we realised the thumb brake wasn't such a great idea. So I was giving it the beans, and all of a sudden my hand just went dunk away from my brakes, going about, it's a quick section, and I just went plowing off the trail, massive crash, and I was like, well, that's done. I can't be running that.
And I was always, I never told him, I was always nervous about this truly one-handed setup with one hand in a sling and one hand on the bar. At that point, I said we had to go back to the drawing board and rethink it. It wasn't going to work, I didn't think.
Riding with one hand was the scariest thing I've ever done. Even now, when things do go wrong and my hand comes off or whatever, it just makes me realise, geez, like you gotta have some balls to do that. And like a big thing with turning back to riding is, I didn't want to turn back to this level of riding without it being safe.
Yeah.
If it's not safe, I ain't doing it.
Tom and I had always talked about the idea of something around the arm.
Luckily, at the time, a mad Chris Porter was allowing me to create an arm brace. So we just waited a little while and got the arm brace.
We looked at the injury that Tom had and how we could stabilise his arm so that he could lean on it, and how we could stabilise the shoulder, because at that point he still hadn't built enough muscle for it to stay in. It was just dropping out of the shoulder joint all the time. So we had an old EVS shoulder brace, a neoprene thing for stabilising, and that seemed to stop the arm falling out. And I had knee braces made for the motorcycle enduro racing that I was doing at the time, and I had them custom made by a company in London. And I knew that they did other types of braces. I'd seen a wrist brace from them before. I was thinking, if we had that wrist brace and a kind of a knee brace style carbon brace here for this part, and maybe a shock absorber for him to lean on, then he could ride really well.
Okay, so this is your current brace that you're using?
Yeah, the first one actually.
This is the first real one. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very, it's been modified over the years, but the carbon you see is what we came up with all those years ago.
Yeah. So this looks like it's from the inside of a knee pad or
Correct.
similar?
Yeah. So Nick Bayliss, we got chatting, and basically after I went out to Altuez to shoot the Mega Avalanche, and I had so much pain in my shoulder. I was shredding out, I loved it, but I didn't have all this stuff yet and this. So I was getting like real nasty like impacts.
Jarring.
We came up with the idea of using this, and this is actually, I think it's a knee pad one.
Yeah, okay.
And it's Saztec, so it takes a lot of that impact away.
Yeah.
And then mixed with the Autobot, this is actually made for brachial plexus injuries to help with subluxation.
Okay, yeah.
But it helps lift the brace into me, so it kind of becomes one. And then, well, I guess working our way down, you see the damper. You probably recognise the Kashima body tube there.
Yeah.
You've got to have the Kashima body tube. And it's a fully custom Fox shock. It's all made of Fox components. I think this stuff from like 98, honestly.
Yeah.
I think this is an old van shaft, stainless steel shaft, just because the breakaway force is really good. So we were just trying to like emulate an elbow movement, which is really difficult to do, like anything on a human body, to actually recreate it. But this was the closest we got. To look at, it is pretty damn basic, but that damper does a lot of things which allow me to ride the way I do. Like changing body position and weight in it, having this soft initial stroke allows all those movements to be controlled to some extent. And then over the years, I made a few other modifications. So this used to be carbon out front, but I was wearing it away because I'd put these Mavic like ratchet off shoes. They just work really well.
Yeah.
And that's what I strapped down to. So I actually ended up 3D printing a piece. So this is like a flex.
A bit more flexible, yeah. Wow, okay.
So it shapes the hand a bit better.
One of the biggest problems he had was with the disconnection. If he was worried that, with the crash.
We thought I was going to get full function of my hand back. So we designed the arm brace with the intention that I'd have enough grip to hold a grip. So all of this interface to the bike was never really thought about. We were just going to kind of see how it went. So first ride out, it's like I just put grip tape on the actual handlebar, and I had like a Fox like glove. We put Velcro. My mum stitched Velcro to the glove. Yeah, and like wrapped it around and just strapped me up. I was like, whatever. I couldn't feel anything at the time, and I got on the bike and straight away I had that like bilateral control. All of a sudden, I was like, whoa! Got to the end, got to a car park. Took my glove off, just red. Just worn all the skin off the bottom of my hand. And I didn't even know. Yeah. So it was like, we need to work out a way around this.
The next thing was about how on earth he attached himself to the bike and released from the bike.
So that's where Tom started his own thing then with the 3D printer and the not broken, and trying to make his own parts so that he could make a system that he could click into and then go off riding himself.
So at the time, I had what were called night resting splints, which look a little bit like this. This is beefed up. So the NHS actually made this up for me. Really good for prototyping, actually. You heat the material, shape it to your hand, It's quite tough. That then I got pretty friendly with Mandy at Sondri. She is ace. I was like, I need one wrapped around a lock-on grip, and I've just got a new bike and it's baby blue, so can you do it in blue for me? And she was like, yeah, of course. So she was kind enough to make this contraption. So it's a much lightweight, which gave me flex, because at the time we were actually locking the grip. There was no rotation in the grip, which obviously your wrist does this all the time. So this actually allowed for me to have that sensation, but with resistance.
Yeah.
But it worked, you know, like that got me back right in technical sense. I was dealing with Dominic Egbier, who's at PDR, who specialises he's a surgical engineer, and he does 3D printing, and he's a biker. So then Dom was like, well, I'll design one with you. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So literally I don't know how many nights we had, man. Like, I used to just go up to his house, and he used to just let me sit there. I'd tell him what I needed, and then from that, we started designing this kind of thing. Pretty awesome, actually, when you think about it. This is made on a desktop printer. We were just trying to see the limits of low-cost 3D printing.
Yeah.
And like that was printed on a £230 machine.
No way.
CNC and doing one-off pieces out of metal, if you're not doing it yourself, you just can't even begin to start like that. Those parts cost me a small fortune. And then at the time, I was getting a lot better at my 3D designing.
Yeah, he's really dug in. He learned how to do the 3D CAD. He learned how to drive the 3D printers. He learned how the different materials make different types of strength plastics.
And then we got on to, well, what it is today. So like what you see here is what is my carriage. So this is what's on the bar now. So it looks a bit more like this. So these are all different materials. So what I do is I start with what's called a low-cost 3D printed material called PLA.
Yeah.
You can buy a kilogram of it for about £15, and that'll allow you to do hundreds of prototypes. So I prototype with that stuff, size it all up, and then it basically ends up being good enough then to go into your higher, like more expensive stuff. But that's when Dom decided he wanted to buy a fancy machine which does nylon with reinforced carbon fibre.
Oh, wow.
So these studs, I've got some on my bike at the moment. If you see the little bits of black on them, they've actually got carbon fibre in them. And the studs on my bike, which actually have been on there holding me, they've done France, done Morzine twice. I've been on them for 3 years.
Wow,
that's
a significant
That's how
difference
strong they are, yeah. So, yeah, massive difference. But the whole process of 3D printing has allowed me to make some really intricate stuff. So this is our latest one, and this is cool. They even 3D printed. That's Flex 3D printed. Yeah, so, and then this bit of moulding, it's made from silicone, but made from a 3D printed mould.
Right, okay.
So
yeah,
like it's still using it, but yeah, and then this is what I call the pop lock system. Really basic, and it just relies on like a pop on and off, and then you got little bumpers inside then to change how much it rotates. So that's like hopefully going to be the first thing I can make available to the public.
Yeah, that's really smart.
So it uses, so then you just use a seat clamp then, and you're good to go. You got your full system to get you riding basic like canal paths, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We haven't ironed out all the bugs, and we're still working on that. Tom is client zero. You know, he is the test pilot. I think a lot of the trouble that we have with the brand and the product is that we're quite visible on social media and online. And I think rightly so, people in similar situations to Tom look towards it and think we have the answer. And maybe we do, but we're still a little bit of time away. We're not production ready, and it's not manufacturable at the moment because we're still working on things that, you know, on a 3D printer. I'd like to think we could move it to a place where we could offer it to other people. That would be, I think that's a good legacy. I think that's a good thing to give back.
You ask anyone growing up about what he was like when we were younger, and the only thing they'll say is bikes. It's not just him, it's his whole family. It's just bikes, bikes and bikes.
It gave us some common ground and something that we had in common that we could orientate ourselves around and organise ourselves around. Don't underestimate bicycles, they change your life.
All this this is scary, you know? I like, how do you go from having nothing, no solution, looking all around the whole world, nobody else has come up with a solution, and then you think, well, actually, maybe I'm just gonna have to make it.
You're right. You absolute muppet.
Everyone says, like, you're nuts. I'm like, well, no, everything's a calculated risk, just like racing was. It was all calculated. Just unfortunately on that day, it went wrong.
Yeah.
Do I spend the rest of my life just going, I'm not doing that, or do I have a go? And I'd rather have a go.
Yeah.
From where he was before accident to where he is now, two completely different individuals. Or were there still the same kind of traits though? Still driven, motivated, focused, determined?
Driven, either way, whatever time, always driven. Very passionate about bikes and just hands-on with everything, no pun intended.
I think Tom's biggest problems are not his physicality anymore. He's come to terms with that. I think it's the constant nerve pain that you get when you get an injury like that. That's the biggest thing for Tom. He wanted to be there. He wanted that, you know, company and the camaraderie. He didn't want to sit at home and mope and be depressed. So we didn't let him.
One thing which does bother me about it is when you crash on something, whether you're learning the right trails, trying a new line, if you crash it, you get up and you try again, and that's your way of putting it behind you. I never finished my run. So we're just heading to Riola, the place where I crashed in 2011. So I've not actually been here since. So
How do you feel about it?
yeah, it's an interesting one. I didn't know how I was going to feel, but at the top of the track there's a mast and you can see it from quite a way out, and I seen it, and I think the scary thing about coming back here isn't the fact that I'm scared of riding the track, it's just, it was such an eye-opener for how easily and how quickly it can go wrong. I think this is it. It doesn't feel like eight years ago. Like it literally feels like yesterday. Right. I think I'm gonna have to go up there and have a roll down, guys. Whew. Only took 7 years, buddy. 7 years in the making, I guess. Are you guys ready? Let's do this.
You were nearly grinning.
Yeah. Awesome. Done it. Cheers, Dan.
What Tom Wheeler has managed to accept, tackle and overcome against all the odds really is, well, it's frankly staggering. And although I've met Tom many times before at bike events and even at Fox UK, actually hanging out with him for a few days has really made me realise what a unique guy he is and how well positioned he is. And as for him out riding on the trails, well, I'm literally blown away. I can't believe what he's capable to do with the system that he has developed from an astonishing amount of research and work and sheer persistence. I think it's absolutely amazing what Tom has achieved. Now, if you want to find out a bit more about his bike, this bad boy right here, you're going to have to tune in to GMBN Tech next week when we're running a bit of a special pro bike, and we'll be chatting to Tom about all the details of that setup on his bike. Now, if you like this project and you want to see us make some more long form content here on GMBN Tech, Let us know what you'd like in those comments below. And as always, please give us a huge thumbs up, especially in this case, if you love what Tom Wheeler is doing. I'm going to put some links to what Tom does in the description underneath this video, and watch this space for some more cool content coming up. Cheers guys.